You are someone who has this incredible physical range. You've fought in the MMA. You ran a marathon while pulling a car. You've completed a triathlon while carrying a 40 kilogram Thor hammer. And then you completed another triathlon that was so long it spanned the entire length of America. And now recently you lifted these gigantic stones that weigh the same as if you lifted 5 of me.
I don't want to be put in a box. If something pulls me towards it and gravitates to me, I won't say no. I just like to live life. And if something sounds fun, I'm gonna go do it. Moving to England and having Scotland and Wales and just everything, you have so much ancient history here that's just, it's amazing. It's amazing to be able to dive into that and be a part of it. And the Dinnie stones are the most famous lifting stones in the world. They were counterbalances at a bridge in Scotland and Podarch. And so the fable goes, Donald Dinnie stood in between them, picked them up side by side and carried them across. And nowadays you get 400-pound strong men that can't even do the width of the bridge.
What has made you the man that you are today? Is it fair to say that you feel like your childhood was robbed?
100%. It was just kill or be killed. My dad always looked at my brother and beat my brother, and my brother beat me in exchange for it. There'd be nights where he would just follow me around with a knife to my back. He picks up the chainsaw, starts it up, runs after me.
That's like something out of a horror film.
I went through a bad phase as being a kid after everything, and one day I finally realized that life's just about being a good person. I know that I live today to the fullest, and I know I did every single thing I could to help fill someone else's cup, and just realize that you're getting out there and you're seeing the world. It's a beautiful place. Like, take advantage of it while you can, because it all could end tomorrow.
What is more painful? Sitting down, lying down for 6 hours, getting tattooed, pricked every few seconds, or lifting the Dinnie stones?
Oof. It depends. If that 6 hours is spent jabbing the nipple, then I'm going to say that, because that was a new level of pain. But I'd say that. I'd say tattooing is by far worse than the Dinnie stones.
Really?
Yeah, there's just so much adrenaline, you know? It was almost like I didn't feel anything, you know? It was almost like if it was just paperweight. There's just so much adrenaline and everything built up for the years that I've been wanting to do them that it just kind of flew up. It's hard to explain it.
I suppose 6 hours sitting, being tortured by someone else is as bad as it sounds.
Yeah, I think just 6 hours sitting. I think most people who know me think my next challenge should be doing nothing for X amount of time, because I don't like to sit still. I like to just go, 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 go.
Yeah, so we should explain. You've just come straight from a tattoo parlor, where you are having a piece of art done on your chest, which is spanning across 2 days. Is not unlike you to be doing something of mega endurance.
No.
Just briefly tell us what you've been having done today.
Yeah, so actually, I started doing it about 2 years ago, kind of a Norse piece across my chest. Have Odin's ravens, Odin, and then the Vegvisor symbol, which is kind of what people think is the Nordic compass right in the middle. And it kind of grants safe passage across seas. And so it was kind of ironic that I started to get it right before I decided to swim 4 days across a bit of ocean. So I think now that I've successfully accomplished that, and I, was granted safe passage, and now I've kind of earned the compass per se. Because
one thing, when you get a tattoo, you can't exercise.
No.
For like a week, is it or so?
Yeah. Now the fact that it's on my chest, I'll go in and I'll do some legs. But when I first started doing it, I was just living in the water for a month. So I had to stop getting my chest done completely and put it on hold for 2 months. And now I'll give it a couple days till I get back, and then I'll go do legs or something. But running's probably out of the question, and anything upper body wise, it's pretty just tight, like raw skin. It just kind of stretches and hurts.
Right, and very close to like blood capillaries, right?
Yeah.
And when you're exercising and putting yourself under strain, they're just the ones that are taking it all.
Yeah, correct. So it'll be a couple days off. Probably needed.
We can see here you've got a tattoo sleeve on your right arm, and now you've got your chest. You're getting a full patchwork on your chest, basically, of tattoos. I'm not tattooed at all, so I'm just very curious about this. Like, when you decide to get a tattoo, do you have a vision of the finished article of a complete chest, a complete arm, 2 arms, or does it just start with one and then you build?
I think I do have a pretty good idea of what I want. But then also, I think most people who have got tattoos should know, like, you leave it to the artist, like that's their hobby. That's what not hobby, that's their profession. They love doing it. They love creating their artwork, but giving them a piece and being, hey, copy and paste this on me kind of takes the creative fun out of it, So I like to come in with some sort of game plan and let them kind of put their artistic spin on it. And obviously what they're best at, you want to find someone who matches the style that you want to get, but also, you don't want to just succumb to whatever they want. You want to be able to have that, push and pull with them and know this is a style that you can do perfectly, that you can do great. Okay, then how can we make that work? I don't want to push you out of your bread and butter. I want to do what you're great at. And luckily I've kind of been able to find that balance with artists from around the world that I've gone to. And, I think my arm's from Spain. My chest is now be from here. And then my leg is from Oregon and my side is from California. So kind of getting pieces from people around the world is kind of cool and adds a bit of story to them.
That's interesting, actually, knowing that there's all different artists and different places and different memories within each tattoo.
Yeah.
Also that you've been building this over years, much like you would with your body and the strength that it takes to lift the Dinnie stones. Because looking at you now, you're a very strong person, but that wasn't always the case.
No.
You looked a lot different when you were younger, growing up, coming out of teenage years. Let's dissect all this. First of all, we should clarify what the Dinnie stones are. I didn't know what they were before I came across you, and I've been fascinated by their story. What are they?
Thank you. I love that people have heard about them from me and then they've dove into them as well, because I just think it's a fascinating part of history in general. And being from America, we don't have a lot of history. So by moving to England and having Scotland and Wales and just everything, you have so much ancient history here it's amazing. It's amazing to be able to dive into that and be a part of it. And the Dinnie stones are just that. They are the most famous lifting stones in the world. And lifting stones are basically, if you go onto YouTube, there's a documentary done by Rogue that just covers mainly Iceland and doing their stones, but kind of where they came from. And their stones of manhood basically is back in Iceland when they would bring like crops or their fishing, in and whatnot. And to decide what rations your family got would depend on what stone you can lift. So there was a big stone, and if I could lift it to whatever height that was required, I was a full stirker. So I was a full man. So I got full rations. And if you could only lift a smaller stone to a certain height, you were half stirker. So you're a half a man, you got half the rations. And it's just a mind-boggling way to think of that's how it used to be, if that's how we provided for our families. And so some of the stones in Scotland and throughout England, I guess, is, there's stories of, I want to marry your daughter. All right, well, you're not much of a man. What can you do? If you can lift this stone over your head, you can marry my daughter.
It's a classic fairy tale, isn't it?
Right. And they all have different stories behind them. Some are you just have to get it to your lap, or you have to get it to your chest or to your shoulder or press it overhead. And they all have just different stories of, you want to work a job. Well, you can't lift anything. If you can lift a stone, I'll give you a job. And that's kind of where the Dinnie stones came to be, as they were counterbalances at a bridge in Scotland in Podarch. I hope I'm saying that right. I think I am close to it. Just no accent. And they were counterbalances. You just think about how old the bridges are, where they need giant stones to counterbalance. Is amazing in itself. And the story was that this boy wanted a job or whatnot, and the guy that, you can't carry anything. You're a small boy. What can you do? He's like, all right, well, if you can carry these stones across the bridge, then you got yourself a job. And so the fable goes, or the fairy tale, or whatever you want to call it, because I don't know if he's done it. Maybe people will hate me for saying that, but it's just an incredible feat. It's this arcing bridge that he was able to carry the stones across. Stood in between them, picked them up side by side, and carried them across. And nowadays, you get 400-pound strong men that can't even do the width of the bridge, or can hardly do the width of the bridge. Wow. So
this is Don Dinnie.
Correct.
The man who we've got here, what was it in?
18s?
1860.
Yeah.
Carried, like you said, these stones across the bridge. Donald Dinnie, actually.
And I can't remember how
true
much.
Scottish name.
Yeah, Donald Dinnie. And then Donald Dinnie, he's got his son as well. But then you have Stevie Shanks and Jack Shanks are kind of the next father, son. I think Jack Shanks is the one who found them after World War II. I always like to joke about it because I don't know how you lost stones that weigh 330 kilos combined. One is 188 kilos, one's 144 kilos. I don't know how you lose them.
Okay, so to give context to this, first of all, they're granite stones?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. They're shaped in a natural way, not in like a machined way.
Correct.
That you might find in a gym.
Yeah, a lot of us are associated, when you hear stones, when I mention it, people think it's the big Atlas kind of cannonball looking stones, which they're not. They're just...
You see in strongman competitions, yeah.
Stones you just see out on a farm.
And that must be so interesting because, like you said, there's two of these stones, 188 kilos, 144 kilos. I had to weigh myself earlier. I'm 70 kilos. And that's with my clothes on. I'm a little bit less, I would like to add. Combined, those two stones weigh 332 kilos. That is the equivalent of lifting just nearly five of me. Basically having two of me on one arm and nearly three of me
It's a good way to put it.
On your other arm.
Yeah.
And you did this.
Yeah. And the cool part is that it makes it even kind of like harder is the back ring. And the ring, it's to me, it's the complexity of it all. Is the dynamicism of all of it. It's not just a static lift in a gym with just a barbell and you could use straps and you can use straps on them, but the authentic way, there's several stages of doing it, and which we can get into, but it's such a dynamic lift. The front one is 188 kilos, or the heavy one, let's say, not the front one, is 188. The back one's 144, and one is 21 inches and one's 19 inches, right? So now you have this kind of, like
imbalance.
Imbalances of just not just 50 kilo difference or so, 40 something. It's now you're tilted. So now when one comes up, the other one's still on the ground, but the other one's heavier, and you have to try to maneuver that up in, a synchronicity kind of way. And
they're different weights, they're different sizes.
And then the diameter heights, of the rings, the big one.
So these are iron rings that have been drilled into the stone.
Yeah. So kind of what I try to say is if you're taking a walk along a canal, wherever in England, and you look at the little boating rings that people tie their boats to. Yeah. Those are, I think that's where they are from, is because every time I walk along the canal in Leeds, I always see them and I'm like, kind of grab them and I'm like, all right.
Get a bit of practice in.
Yeah. It's a little bit of memory. I see them and I'm like, oh man, I miss it. But one is, I think about 3/4 inches. And you can use all four. Now, if you have small hands on the lighter one, you could use all four, but it's not a circular ring like the front one. It's an oval. So
even the rings are different.
Even the rings are different. So the back one, if you want to give yourself a 1/2 inch height, which might make the world of difference, you'll be dealing with a 3-finger grip. So you'll have 3 fingers on it instead of all 4. So that makes it even more painful because now you have a ring digging into the side of your finger. But if you want to sacrifice that 1/2 inch, now you're dealing with the fat part of the oval and you might be able to get 4 in. So it's kind of just
so many inches.
Yeah. And then you have, do you want to stand over them and lift them, or do you want to lift them side by side? And that is where there was a world of difference for me.
Yeah. I want to get into this actually. So I've seen 2 different methods, I guess, of lifting them. One is the typical side by side, like you'd lift your supermarket shopping.
Yeah.
But then the other one is like, I don't know how do you describe it?
Like a straddle one.
So that's where you're having one front and one back. Your arms are still out of you, but maybe your legs and your arms are forming a square of some sort.
Yeah, basically you're just straddling your right foot or left foot. Usually based on the stones and the geometry of them, you can get a little bit more give out of them. So you usually want your right foot in front and your left foot just staggered a bit behind it, kind of like in a very split stance. And then that way you'd have, or maybe I'm saying it backwards now, but you would have your right hand in front and your left hand in back, just based on how the stones would rock. Because you can kind of get it to rock back with you to help you grab that stone in the back because it's, a little bit lower. So you can do that. And that is the favorable way. Obviously, if you go back to how the story was, became, he didn't carry the stones over the bridge, straddling them. It'd be impossible to walk. So obviously he stood in between them and picked them up. And that obviously is going to create a bigger imbalance because if you're just standing over the top of them, all you have to do is stand straight up. You know what I mean? There's just all that center of gravity just needs to go straight versus side by side. now you're having this kind of wonkiness in your core and having to almost kind of bend down a little bit more to pick them up. So it's a much more difficult lift, and you have to lift them much higher. And me being 6'4", I don't know what that is in centimeters. I think it's almost 190 centimeters, 193, I believe, is I have to make those travel much further, versus I've done them both. And when I straddle, they come off the ground just a little bit, just based on how your stance is. Your legs are spread so far apart, there's only so high you can get. But when you stand side by side, they have to travel a much greater distance. And that weight just crushing your hands, everybody will say, it's the weight is heavy, but it's the grip that is just excruciating and just tears your hands apart. And so that was the hardest part about doing side by side, is just having to hold on to 188 and 144 for that duration to get it up.
What drew you to this campaign to prep yourself to go through the training that was involved to be able to lift these stones?
I guess I grew up and, it goes back a long time where, I didn't really have a family or didn't really have a father figure. And a family took me in back living in California. And I was just kind of a punk. I got suspended out of school right away, expelled probably my first week into one school and everything. And I wasn't getting in trouble. I guess, I don't know, I was just angry. I was just an angry kid. And so the dad kind of took me under his wing, and he was always going to the gym. And so basically just gave me that discipline and taught me discipline and respect and just, working hard. I started doing construction, working in plumbing with him, and learned just the love of the gym. There's something just honest about lifting iron. Lifting something there's no cheating it. It's either gonna come up or it's not. And so I found that love and just passion through lifting kind of connects me with him. It's a pretty special moment being able to, just be like, kind of got me started in this whole journey of not just fitness, but strength. And now I can't give it up. As much as I love endurance sports, and, if we ever get into any of that stuff, like I do a lot of ultra endurance stuff, but I'll never give up lifting because I think it's just where my heart lies.
We'll get into that. Because you are someone who has this incredible physical range. Unlike so many other athletes that we know of traditionally, you've fought in the MMA. You ran a marathon while pulling a car. You've completed a triathlon while carrying a homemade concrete 40 kilogram Thor hammer. And then you completed another triathlon that was so long it spanned the entire length of America plus some more. And now recently you've lifted these gigantic stones that weigh the same as if you lifted 5 of me. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you don't do?
I just sit still. I need to just stay busy. And if something, kind of pulls me towards it and gravitates me, I won't say no. I like it. I'll just go do it. I don't know. I don't want to be put in a box is what I'd say. I never like to be called, a runner or a lifter or a fighter or anything. Or a swimmer, I just like to live life. And if something sounds fun and enjoyable and you get to meet a community within it. I mean, I didn't know the community that surrounded the Dinnie stones, and it's one of the greatest communities I've ever been in. There's about 8 of us who lifted on that day up in Podarch, and like I love every single one of those guys. Got to know them over Instagram before we got up there. When I saw them, they were like family.
Because this is like a pre-booked event that you do. The stones, they're on the grounds of is it a hotel? Is it
of an old kind of an old B&B, I believe. Okay. I don't think it's there. It's not really usable anymore, but they're chained up right out front of it now. And so you have to send in a qualification video of lifting some sort of lift of 300 kilos to at least be like, hey, I'm worthy to come up here. And then you have to set in your date. So I qualified for it well before I did the triathlon across the United States, but then the world shut down with COVID. And so obviously I couldn't go to gyms, I couldn't do anything. So decided to start swimming and running. And then once I got done with that, it was full speed ahead back to the Dinnies.
Oh, so this has been
many
years.
Probably been the longest thing in the making I've ever had. Is February 2020 is when I heard of them. And it's been on my mind nonstop ever since.
Because there's not just the Dinnie stones. There's many stones all over, I guess, the world, but there's certainly a lot within the UK. And I've been educating myself with them. There's the Sadlin Mare, which are also located in Scotland. It's just one standing stone, but there's like a plinth of another big stone that you lift the stone onto.
Yeah.
That's only 99 kilos. I say only 99. Still
only 99 now.
Still as big as me. Another one, I think you've listed the Peak District Dinnie stones. So how do they differ from the Scottish?
So those are actually replicas, basically. During COVID, I think they were made. So they're maybe 2019, right before COVID.
So they just don't have the history and heritage behind them.
100%. And so those are in kilos. I know they're 776 pounds.
I've got it here. They're 163. One of them, and then 189.
Yeah. So the heavy one is relatively the same. It's where the back one becomes heavier.
So combined, they're heavier. They're 352.
Right. Yeah. And so those same deal. Had to send them a video, and it was very last minute. It was about 3 weeks before I went to the Dinnies. And I thought, if I can get these, or at least maybe get wind beneath the stones is kind of what they call it, is if you don't lock it out, but you just get it off the ground.
Right.
Because you need to lock the Dinnies out for 2 seconds. And if you just get wind beneath it, called wind beneath the stones, which is still valiant effort. It's still impressive to get. And so I thought, well, these are heavier. I'm struggling in the gym just for 90% of the weight, So I'm like, we'll just see if I get it. And ended up getting them fairly easy, almost shockingly easy.
Wow.
And I was just like, I think, it's hard not to sound cocky with it, is just from competing in MMA for so long, is like, there's people who you would see do incredibly well in the gym. In MMA, do incredibly well. They were just monsters in the gym. And when they got in the cage, they broke. Just something in them. They just didn't show up to compete. And I think I was the opposite. I think I slept my way through everything training. I didn't really, care too much. But when it came time to perform, I show up. And I think that's kind of how it was with any competition, is when it comes time, I'll show up to compete. And I love it. So when it got to the Peak District, it was weird. It was in a park, like a zoo. In Matlock, like a kids zoo in Matlock. So there's all these little kids running around with their parents, and then I'm just this one weird dude in jean shorts just lifting stones, and there's like, what is he doing, Dad? So yeah, it was a good time though.
They must have filled you with confidence going up to Scotland.
Oh, 100%.
Because that's, like I said, it's got the history and the heritage. They're the ones that have the importance, even if they're slightly lesser weight. They've got all this history behind them.
Definitely.
I love how you fully embrace the Scottish culture and got yourself a tartan kilt.
Had to.
What's the story behind that?
So it was really interesting. Is I always wondered, is it kind of mocking the tradition? Is it not? Like, what should I do? And so I asked a couple people, and they're like, no, 100%, it's okay, it's cool, get it. So the day I went up there, I was kind of like looking around for what kilt to get, and each tartan is for different families.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, my last name's True. Like, I don't really think we're Scottish. And so I go around and I find this little corridor off, I think it's the mile end or whatever, like the Royal Mile.
The Royal Mile in Edinburgh, yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay. I always get it confused with the one outside of Buckingham Palace.
That's the Mile.
Yeah. So I found this corridor and weave my way back through it and get into this old, kind of just oak build. Like you just tell it wasn't like a tourist spot, even though it was on that big street. And I'm like, hey man, I know this might come off as insulting. I don't mean it. And you can tell me if it is, be brutally honest with me, but I just want a kilt. I don't need a nice one because kilts can be 800 pounds. Like it's a proper suit. Yeah. As coming from America or England, our 4 or 5 piece suits, it's a proper suit for them.
It's a lifetime investment for some people.
Yeah. And so I'm like, hey, I'm going to lift a stone. I'm going to lift a rock. I don't need it to be nice. And he's like, well, we don't really do those, but what's your last name? And so he kind of pulls out this, it's so cool. I got a cool video of it. He pulls out this old archaic leather book. And he's like, what's your last name? He's flipping through it. And so use my last name, True. That wasn't in it. And then kind of worked our way back from, my mom's last name, her maiden name, my dad's last name, True, which I think we took a letter off when we came over from England initially, and then went to his parents' last name. They didn't have it, but I think it ended up being my grandma's, is Bridge, somewhere around there. And I think it was the Galloway or the Galway kilt. So we actually did have a tartan. So that was actually really cool to find out that there is some sort of history there for us, which made it kind of, a little bit more special. It was cool.
It's amazing. Yeah. Knowing that you could kind of retrace your family to find something that you could have a deeper connection with for that experience.
Definitely. Just being able to see that, you just have this old, it's something you'd find in the most ancient library in the world, that you just got dust on it and you're in it. It's cool.
Just jumping in briefly to say, if you've got this far, you're probably a fan of the show. And it would be great if you wouldn't mind confirming that love by following or subscribing to this podcast. It takes just one click from you, but it really does make a huge difference in getting more people to find this show. Thank you. So what was it like on the day? You said there was 8 other guys?
7 others. I was 8.
Okay, there's a collection of 8 of you. All there with, I guess, maybe some close people. Do you have anyone with you?
Yeah. So it's really funny is there was 5 of us, I believe, maybe 3 or 4 are from America. 1 was from New Zealand. I think the other 2, if that makes 8, were from Scotland, right down the street. The only people not wearing kilts were the Scottish people, which is just kind of funny. But I came out rocking it right away. Some people put it on later to compete. I popped out the car rocking it with a Viking braid and everything. I wanted to fully embrace this. And I had one of my really good buddies, Hector, from who I just met through the ultra running scene in the last few years, and we've become like brothers now. And he kind of sensed how like special it was to me, which I'm still shocked he came out for it because I'm just lifting rocks, to put that facetiously. And he flew all the way out from San Diego just to see me lift them.
What a friend.
We'll go if he has a 200-mile race or my triathlon across the country. He flew out all the way out to Mississippi to cycle across Texas with me, a couple statewide, but those are things that take like a week or two, where it's worth the trip you make. And so to me, I'm like, you're flying across the world just to watch me possibly lift these stones or not. And then another buddy who's also from California, but he was actually out in Italy training for the Tour de France. It's a big, like, I think 250 miles, 260 or 70 mile race through Italy, around Italy, one of the mountain ranges. And he took a break training to come out and do it as well. So we kind of had like a boys trip up there. And then also my girlfriend came up as well. So she's always been by my side through these challenges. So it was kind of cool. It was like a boys weekend, but then she was also there enjoying it as well. And it was just special. It was
So were you the first?
I wanted to be the first to go up, but I wasn't. I was the first to lift it on that day successfully. I think 2 people went before me and they failed.
Okay, so what was going through your mind seeing them fail?
It's a weird thing. So back to the MMA world it's win or lose. I want to see you lose and I want to win. I just want to rip your head off.
It's a fighter within you, yeah.
Yeah, it's either kill or be killed. And there's only one winner today. Lifting these, I understand how hard it is. I understand what kind of grueling training you went through. I don't want to see you fail because we're not really competing against each other. But I want to be first that day. Because if you look at the record books, there's 2 of the world's strongest men from Scotland who just did it right before, which is Luke Stoltman and Tom Stoltman. And Tom Stoltman is 2 times the world's strongest man. And I thought, how cool would that be to get my name somehow in a record book, literally right below his, that's forever going to be just engraved in Scottish history. And so I'm like, I want to be first. I don't want anybody else to fail, but I want to be first. And so when the first 2 failed, I'm like,
it's your shot.
I hope you come back and you do it like right after me, but I want to be first. And so like, it's a competitive edge in me, but like, I don't want to see anybody fail because like, I don't want you to go back. Like I know what it took to get here and I would never wish that on anybody because I'd be devastated. And so, but it was the competitor in me of like, just because someone else can't do it doesn't mean it's going to like get in my head. It's going to show that I can do it even more. And I want to show people because as we said at the start, I've never been a big guy. When I fought, I was about 70 kilos. When I used to do MMA, like I was always really skinny. For a 6'4", that's extremely skinny. Actually, terribly ill doing it. So for me, I had this body dysmorphia of I'm not as big as I actually am. And so I had to like ask my girlfriend, I had to ask like the guys, I'm like, who looked like the most like deceiving, like you thought would lift it? And they're like, we thought you would lift it. Like you were the biggest person. I'm like, damn it. I was hoping I was kind of like the smaller guy who like shocked everybody. They're like, no, it wasn't shocking when you did it. Like you look like you could do it. And I'm like, dang it. I in my head, I'm not 105 kilos. I'm still 70. You know what I mean? And so I guess that's where that body dysmorphia still affects me. But
that's testament to the 10, 15 years or so of hard work that you've been doing to build the strength that you have.
Yeah.
That people could look at you and think, wow, that's a strong guy.
Yeah, which is still weird to me. I still don't think I look like a big guy. And so it was just, I don't know, it was fighting. I was nervous before, but I was like telling him in the car, like we went out and, got some food before and I couldn't eat. I was sick to my stomach. Couldn't eat. I was terrified. Like the whole way there, I'm just like, I've never been that nervous for anything. because it's in a fight. At least I can grind it out. I can battle. If I'm down, I can come back. I can earn this. And if not, then the people who came and flew across the world can see me battle. You know, at least there's a fight. It's something to watch. If you're running a marathon or a half marathon, you can see them like go through it. You know, maybe you might not win podium, but like you see them succeed. This is either I'm going to walk up and I'm going to try to rip these stones off the ground. It's either going to come up or not. And if they don't, it's literally you're going to find out in 2 seconds. It's like I said, the iron doesn't lie, or the granite doesn't lie. It's either that or we're going home. And we're going home really sad. And so it was a lot of weight on my shoulders having them come out. You know, I'm glad they did. But when he said they were, it was 10 times the weight on my shoulder, knowing that like I wanted to make it worth it for them, you know?
So you've just witnessed the first two guys be unsuccessful in their attempt, and then it's your turn to stand over the stones. Talk me through what goes through your mind at that moment, and then the moments when you're reaching for that iron.
Trying not to overthink it. You know, you want the stones to be perfect, but you know, you don't want to shift them around too much. You don't want to overthink it. But it's nothing like you've trained with in the gym. You can get, you know, ring replicas and you're just lifting circular plates, you know, and just try not to overthink it. It's just another day, just lifting, but they're so drastically different. It's like you've never lifted anything like these before, and you're just supposed to go do it on your first attempt. And it's not like you have many chances. You know, your grip is going to be the first thing to just give up. If you don't get it on the first or second, good luck getting it on the third. It's not going to be your legs are going to give up. It's your grip. And then you have nothing else, you know? So it was nerve-wracking in that sense. And I think the competitor in me wanted to do it side by side first, because I wanted to be like, if I have one shot at this, I want to make it big. But I thought, all right, I'm going to play it safe, not get too cocky, and do straddle. Straddle I know I can get. And it almost lifted up so easy. But it's like we said, I did the Peak District. So I understood that they're easier than I'll expect. And so when I lifted, I like kind of rocked back in the first one. I was like, it came off the ground so easily, and then kind of set back up. And it's funny, when I do get it, I actually fell. And I've never, you see a lot of people do the Dinnies, they'll fall back. And just because there's the counterbalance of it, right? But I've never fallen in training. Like usually I have great balance doing it and it doesn't look ugly. And I lifted them, and I lifted the front one so fast, the 188 so fast, that like I fell back doing it. And I was just like, I wasn't proud. You could see the video of just like, does that count? Because I'm not proud of it. I wouldn't count it.
And you can't see what it looks like from
their angle. And they're like, no, you got it. And I'm like, it didn't look cool. Like I want to make a statement that like I did this. There's no doubt about it. When I go to bed tonight, I don't want to think like, you gave me it because whatever. I want to know without a doubt in my mind and everybody else's mind that these were up. And so I did get it. But once everybody went through and did the straddle, I was like, all right. And he's like, all right, does anybody want to do side by side? And I was like, 100% want to do side by side. And I just know that that's me for some reason. I know I can like muscle that up. And it's a bit different of a technique and more my style of deadlifting kind of way. And so when I did that, it was unreal. It was, again, you start overthinking, are my feet the right distance? Are they too far apart? Are they this? Are they that? And I kind of got the guy, Brett, who's, the king of the Dinnies, basically. He's the guy who orchestrates all of it and runs it. And, got him to shift the stone over a bit more. And I stood over it. And it was so funny because you hear him in the video. He's like, all right, now don't do anything stupid that you wouldn't do in the gym. Do what you do in the gym. And in my head, I'm like, do I tell him I've never done this before? Because usually everybody trains straddle and does straddle, or people train side by side and they do side by side.
Right.
I've never trained side by side ever.
Always straddling.
Always straddle, because I'm like, that's just the easiest, most efficient way.
Right.
But I understood that the most, call it OG way of doing it, in the most authentic way, is side by side. But I just never did it in the gym. I didn't care to. I just thought, I just want to get this done. But something hit me getting there of like, I want to solidify that, I want to be in that very, very small group of people. So now there's about 260 people in the world who have done it. I think I'm number 260 in the world who have ever done it. And I think when it comes to side by side, there's under 20 people in the world who've done side by side.
That's a tiny list.
Tiny. And so I'm like, I wanted to join that group.
And I guess that highlights just how hard it is between the straddle and the side by side.
100%. You're looking at a difference, right? Well, obviously 220 difference really. So it's incredible. So, most people don't even try it. And so I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to give it a go.
You come all this way, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I want to try it. And I knew I had it in me. I knew the first one went up. It was just, is my grip going to last? And it was just
the first one's because you're trying to lift both at the same time because one is smaller,
higher and lower. Yeah.
So one comes up. How is that affecting your back balance?
So
and how do you compensate for that?
The week before,
and also you've got, like you said, there's like seconds to react to this.
Yeah, like there's not time to.
Before then, you have to like give up and.
Yeah, there's too much weight in your hands. You're not going to be able to kind of like, all right, should I go here? It's either it's going to go or not, and Brett is going to call it. If it doesn't look like you're going to get it, he'll just say stop, because you could injure yourself. You could pull a lat, you could slip a disc or anything. And about 11 days before is actually the only time when I say I'd never trained side by side. I tried it a couple times at Mark Haydock's house, who he's the record holder. It's like 47-second hold. He's, just an absolute monster when it comes to the Dinnies. He's the world record holder for him. And so, but this, again, the sweetest guy in the world. Like, this community is unreal. So like meeting Mark and meeting Brett, the guys who are kind of like synonymous with the Dinnies. You can't know the Dinnies and not know them. And so he lives over near Liverpool, I believe, is that direction, at least west from here, from Leeds. And so I drove all the way out there, 3 hours, just to go lift in a barn with him. And it was just so cool being able to meet him and just shake his hand. I'm like, felt like I was shaking like, it's like the Midas touch, like the hand, like Midas who always touched everything, it turned to gold. I was like, just shaking like a legendary like hand of like, this guy has like the world's strongest grip. It was just cool meeting him. He's like not a hero, but like a legend to me, And so getting to lift with him and kind of giving me tips of it, of, where to focus the grip, where to do this. Like, don't worry about lifting the smaller one first, worry about the big one. Because you worry about the big one, the little one's going to go. It's, if you worry about 144 kilos, you're still going to leave 40 behind over here. But if you pull 188, you're going to pull it equally, And so really they just came off at the exact same time. And I thought in my head, when I pull them, I'm going to try to hold it. I want to try to see how long I can hold them, because then that's a whole new ballpark. Can you hold them? It's a different game. And so like that puts you in another class of individuals. So I'm like, I'm going to hold them. And I just got up, and I'm a very mellow, and maybe it might not seem it now, but like when I knocked anybody out, when I like put anybody to sleep in a cage, I just kind of walked away. I had a lot of opponents see me before a fight. They're like, man, I was mugging you across the cage. And like, all you did was just kind of look at me and just give me a wink. And I was like, yeah, I'm just here to do business, man. And they're like, that's terrifying. Like, I don't like to get amped up and get like, I'm not that guy. And literally I picked it up and just, like, I just let out this, like this roar, like this energy that I've just been holding in for so long. And just everybody, friends coming out from across the world, like I get chills thinking about it, because it just meant so much to me. And I don't think anybody really realized that. So by them coming all the way out there showed me that they realized that, how important this was to me, how many years I put towards it, how much effort I put into it. And I'm glad. I don't care that I didn't hold it. Like, I just let out this roar at the top and just yelled, and I just dropped them.
Is that your grip that gives up first?
It wasn't even my grip. I think that was it, because if you think about it, when you lift, you want to keep everything tight. You want to keep everything braced. It's 700 or what do we say? 333 kilos. I'm 105. Like, you need to keep everything locked in place. So if I let out a yell, everything's loose. My whole core and stability is gone. So they were going to go down anyways. My grip was fine. Like, I think I could have held on, but it was just letting loose of all that tension and stability.
That's interesting. That's a mental thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you were to do this again, you could have a different mental approach that said, okay, I'm not gonna let out this
roar. I think now if I did it, I'd be like, all right, been there, done that. Now it's time to hold them. So it's been dabbling in my mind to go do it again. But if I had the opportunity, I wouldn't do it any different that time. Like, that was just the most incredible way for me to do it, and I guess the most authentic emotions I've ever had. When I finished the triathlon across the country, I just hugged the guy who got me into the gym. I'm like, call him my dad now. I just hugged him and was like, all right, we gonna go home? There's no emotion. There's no reaction. And this was the only thing I've ever done where it was just inaudible. I just had no control over it. It just came out, and I liked it. It was cool.
You mentioned your your dad, in inverted commas, someone who looked after you when you were younger. I suppose a lot of what has made you the man that you are today, and the story of all the endurance events that you've done, all the strength training that you've done, all the incredible challenges that you've set, stem back from troubles you had in a childhood. Is it fair to say that you feel like your childhood was robbed from you?
100%. Yeah. I think my mom even said, we did an interview with her one time, and it was interesting to hear her say it. I love my mom to death, and but we're still not a close family when it comes to emotions. The first time she actually heard that I tried taking my own life was she listened to a podcast of mine. I had never told her. I didn't feel the need to. It was, I needed to be walled off to keep the family strong. Like, my emotions were weak and my actions were weak. And if I couldn't be that person for my family, I could be the outside my family, but not for them.
Where does that stem from, that mindset?
We were during the podcast, she had mentioned that I had asked her one time when I was like 6 or 7, I asked her, when is anybody going to notice me? All you do is pay attention to my brother, Buddy. I was like, and I've always felt this way, but I didn't know I said it at 6 or 7 years old. I didn't know I was already kind of that clued into it. I thought it took me much longer, but she's like, no, you always asked us, when is anybody going to notice me? When is anybody going to see me? All you do is care about Buddy, because he was just the first child and just a troublemaker. He was an awful kid. We didn't own him anymore when he was, I think, 13 or 14. He became a warden of the state. The state of California owned my brother. We didn't own him anymore as a family because of how much trouble he was always in. So that just kind of goes to show that the center of attention was always around him and trying to keep him out of trouble that I was just forgotten about. And on to the question of...
What was life like growing up with your brother?
Violent. It was very short-lived, but violent. The scar over my eye was from... I think I was a little baby. I don't remember anything before 6 years old. I think it was just purely because of that. He was 3 years older than me, so it's not like he knew much of what he was doing, but definitely to the point of it wasn't. I would be fair to say it was just kill or be killed. And it sounds, I always tacked it up to, brothers fight. Oh, it's just brotherly love. Brothers fight, wrestle. And then I realized talking to a girl I dated in college, she's like, no, that's worse. I'm like, nah, it's just brotherly love. And she got me thinking about it and talking about it to a therapist. And I'm like, no, it was.
What kind of fighting was it?
We were just trying to kill the other person before they killed you. It was who's going to get who first today. And it wasn't a joke. It was, I sent him to the hospital. We had little plastic rubber swords or plastic swords. And it had a little ball on the end, so you could kind of joust with each other and play around with each other. And I remember he opened his mouth when we were kind of yelling at each other. And I just jammed the sword down his throat. And the ball got broken off and lodged in his throat. He couldn't breathe. And I was probably 6, 7, 8 years old. And it was just, my first reaction was I'm going to get him before he gets me today. Because I know he's going to get me today. I know he's going to try to kill me today. And so he ended up going to the hospital and, having to get it cut out of his throat. And it was just it was just how it always was with us. And it wasn't anything, it's hard not to say it was malicious, because obviously it sounds very, very terrible, but it was just, I knew if it wasn't him, it was going to be me. There's times where he would lock me in a dog kennel, and we had a big dog kennel to make it sound nice, but still very small for a person to be in, and he would my parents would leave and he'd lock me in it for 8, 12, 16 hours. My parents went on vacation and we had a babysitter. He was just a master manipulator, and he would convince them that we were okay and they would just go home.
Wow.
Wild to think that at a 10-year-old would convince a babysitter that we're okay and we're adults, and they would just leave. And he would lock me in the kennel, do anything from torching me, the little Axe spray cans, torch me inside of it. He'd waterboard me. I'm pretty sure I got a broomstick up the rear end a couple times just because he would just jab it through there. And that was every single day. And if I ever got let out of the kennel, it was just World War III. It was just fighting not to get put back in it.
It was self-defense.
Yeah. I just knew that if I didn't get him, that's where I'd end up that day. And, I love my brother to death now. We're good. Obviously, we could there's a pivoting moment in that. But yeah, it was a very short time because, like I said, after he was owned by the state, he kind of went away. So up until he was about, I think 14 or 15, maybe, I didn't know who my brother was. We didn't reconnect till maybe 4 or 5 years later at that point. We had a very violent handful of years, and then he just disappeared.
And what were your parents' reaction to your and your brother's relationship?
It was my fault. I was the instigator. I had a big mouth, and my mom will say it too. So it's not like a woe is me. She'll say it too as, we always blamed it on Justin. We always knew Justin had a big mouth, and everybody, my whole family knew. I'd always just poke people, but they'd just be like, Justin instigated it. He always asked for it. And I'm like, there was times where I didn't. It was just, I didn't ask for it, So it was back and forth. The reaction is you asked for it is all it was. And there was no repercussions for any of us, is they were gone the next day, and I would try to call the police. My dad was really close with the sheriff in town. So the sheriff would hear it over the police scanner. My dad had a police scanner, and instead of anybody actually coming to fix the problem, my dad would show up with the sheriff and just crack a beer in the kitchen and hang out. And I'd be like, no one's going to do anything as I'm, bleeding from the head. So it was just like that every day.
So where did your journey into fitness, into challenging yourself physically come about?
I wouldn't say it was with MMA. I think I just enjoyed that. It was just a chess match for my head.
What got you into MMA?
I was going to school for engineering, and I needed a extracurricular activity, which they had jiu-jitsu in the school. So I kept taking it 3 times, and it was always the base level stuff. And I was like, I like this. It's fun. And so after the year of doing that, I decided to go find a gym and just became pretty good at it, I guess. There's a couple guys training in the gym that were fighting for titles. And after like 3 months, my guy who's like my brother now, my buddy Alex, he was the coach there and was kind of like, hey man, like this guy's going to fight for a title in Washington coming up. Like you're smoking him, like you should fight. I was like, all right, man, sign me up, just as a joke. And
did you realize what you're getting into at the time?
No, I was completely joking.
This is a cage fight, is it?
Yeah.
In like the octagon ring type thing. That's what MMA is.
Yep. Full blown contact.
It's one man versus another man.
Yep.
Until one of them passes out.
Yeah. Gets knocked out, passes out, gives up.
Cannot defend themselves.
Yeah.
Or has to tap out. Yeah.
For me, it's there's no knives anymore. There's no, machetes.
When you say knives and machetes, you mean?
That was just childhood. There's no hammers. There's no chainsaws. Like,
where was that all coming from?
Childhood. My brother. With that is there'd be nights where he would just follow me around with a knife to my back. My parents would leave to go on a date. The second he leave, boom, kitchen knife right to the back. Not doing anything, just to show dominance.
Just warning you.
Yeah. And that's just how it was. There was a time where I shut off his PlayStation before he saved it. And he was on house arrest. And I thought I could get away. I thought, oh, he can't leave the front yard. My mom had a little Bumblebee chainsaw that was battery powered. She was out in the yard, and I run through the garage and out to the front door, out the driveway, or out the garage door, down the driveway. He picks up the chainsaw, starts it up, runs after me. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, we've already left the property. How are you still going?
That's like something out of a horror film.
Yeah. I've never ran so fast in my life, but I'm surprised he could run that fast with a chainsaw. I mean, it was a small one, but still a chainsaw, still decent size. And to me, cage fighting was just art. It was a place where when the cage door shut, nothing else mattered anymore. It was the most blissful place I've ever been in my life. There's no repercussions. There's no who's at fault, who's this, who's that. It was just 2 people who mutually agreed to fight each other. And I had nothing but love and respect for the people at the end. It's a weird bond you have that you just shared, 3, 6, 9 minutes, 15 minutes with somebody that you just tried killing each other, and maybe some people didn't go in with that attitude. Maybe that's why they weren't successful. But I went in with that attitude of, I want to kill you before you kill me. It's what I'm used to. And it was just peaceful. I've always said, if my mom did end up getting stabbed one time, not outside the cage, but if that were to have happened outside the cage and you shut that door, it would have been completely out of my mind. It was everything going wrong in the world. And at that point, I was 18, 19 years old when I started. And at that point, I was just angry, hated life, tried taking my own life before that. And to have that moment of bliss, whether that was 30 seconds or whether that was 9 minutes or 15 minutes, however long it took, that was the most peaceful time of my life. And it was beautiful and I loved it. And then afterwards, I got to just hug the other person back. Oh, I love you, man. And that was over. It was cool.
It's just a load of respect, I guess.
Yeah.
You were athletes.
Mm-hmm.
You
and
had a job to
it
do.
all started out as a joke. Alex came back in the gym. He's like, all right, man, I got you a fight in 2 months. I was like, dude, I was kidding. I don't want to fight anybody. I'm not a violent person. I don't like fighting. The only person I fought was my brother or people who jumped me because of my brother, because he was in a bunch of gangs and I would get jumped a lot. But I didn't like fighting. I think it's ugly. I think it's horrible. I think people with physical violence outside of it, I worked at a bar as security for a long time, and it's the most vile thing in the world. People getting in fights out in the street. It's disgusting. I don't want any part of it. I don't think it's cool. It's the worst. But yet in the cage, when we're both mutually agreeing to it, we know what we're getting into and we're safe. It's a sport. It's an art at that point. It's not just two drunk people going at it and possibly, hitting your head on the concrete. That's terrifying. Terrible.
One of the things you do is you champion mental health awareness. It's something you did with your America's Longest Triathlon. And you've talked about being suicidal at an age before you got into MMA and you found this kind of physical, I guess, outlet. What was going through your life back at that moment in time that led you down that path?
So it goes back to what you said about, or asked about, where does that emotion come from to block stuff off from my family? My dad had a very ugly divorce, and I think I was one of the kids. I wasn't affected by the divorce, or so I thought. Maybe I wasn't.
How old are you then?
I was 15, and it was an extremely aggressive divorce, very, I guess, violent. My dad always looked at my brother and beat my brother, and my brother beat me in exchange for it. So I don't blame my brother for it. He was only doing what he was taught. He was taught to always pick on the smaller person. And when my brother left and I lived with my dad because I didn't want to move to Oregon with my mom and my brother, my dad beat me. And so it was just an ugly, conjure of whatever activities and timeline going on there. And my mom started dating somebody in Oregon, and my dad was the master manipulator. That's probably where my brother got it from. My mom started dating this guy, and he became really good friends with my dad. My dad became really good friends with him, and I kind of became a spy. I was living with my dad and kind of watching his activity, making sure he didn't drive out of the night and go up to Oregon and spy on my mom. Even though it's 8 hours away, he would do that kind of thing. And so I was kind of a spy, just living with him. I hated it, living in a little tiny trailer. And I guess fast forward to it, he convinced this guy. My mom didn't like it and broke up with him. And he convinced this guy that my mom, was every bad name in the book you could say, and convinced him to stab her, to kill her. And so, I used to get really good at this and not.
How old are you at this point?
I was 15. And I used to get really good at saying this and not choking up at all. It was just a normal day of my life telling a story. But I was at the family's house who took me in. And I remember I was sitting upstairs. And like I said, me and my brother, we hate each other. We were always trying to kill each other. Hadn't seen him in years. And I was sitting upstairs and I was studying with my sister. And it's the first time I ever studied. Probably never studied again because of that. And so get a call from my brother, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just pick it up later. And I'm on the way home. The mom, Lil C, she's driving me home, and I listen to the voicemail of my brother. He's bawling. Never heard my brother cry in his life. So I think he's clinically a psychopath. That's a whole ordeal, but never heard him cry in his life. Never. And I'm like, oh shoot. So I call him back, and he can't get a word out. And then he's with my aunt. My aunt can't get a word out. And then something within my mind of I know what happened. It's my mom. And basically, she answers the phone again. I remember exactly where I was in Petaluma in California. And my mom, brother, and my aunt were up in Oregon. And they're like, your mom's been stabbed. You need to get here. And I remember just the phone just flew out of my hands right into the windshield. And Lil C, she's freaking out. Nobody's ever seen me act like this ever. I was a tough kid. I was a fun loving kid. I was always happy and go lucky and never angry at that point. And at that point, life switched. I just hated life. I hated everything. And I just became angry at life. Everybody, everything. It didn't matter. And she pulls into this little car park, and I hop out of the car as it's moving, and I just am yelling at God, like just yelling and praying that she's going to be all right. And basically I go to Oregon the next day. I hop on a plane and get to Oregon. First plane ride I've ever been on. Get to Oregon, and my brother picks me up at the airport. And it was the first time we ever hugged each other. First time we ever told each other we loved each other. He picks me up. We hug over the center console and just, I love you, man. Because we knew at that point, we were like, our mom wasn't going to make it. And our dad was obviously dead to us. We knew he was a part of it. My brother got a phone call right as it happened and basically just told my brother he's sorry. You know, we knew he was a part of it. And there's no words to be said. We knew that mom probably wasn't going to make it. It was just going to be us. Our grandma was there, you know, and our aunt, but our aunt was always living elsewhere. It was just going to be us for the rest of our lives. And so drove to the hospital, and doctor comes out and he says, all right, you can go in and see her. But basically it's telling me like, this is the last time you're going to see your mom, you know, like you can go in and see her right now. If it wasn't, you would have let me wait. But it was like, hey, you can go in and see your mom right now. But you can't cry. If you cry, she'll cry. And if she cries, she'll die. And like to tell a 15-year-old that, I mean, obviously, I guess it sounds kind of old, but if you tell a 15-year-old that you have to see your mom in this condition and you can't break a tear, you just have to look at her and be like, everything's going to be okay.
And all you want to do is just show every emotion. Yeah.
I've been bawling my eyes out for the last, you know, probably 16 hours before I got there. I was hysterical the whole night, you know. They took me back to Mike and Lucy's house because they knew I couldn't go to my dad's because they knew what I would do. And so they took me back to their house and nobody could get a word out of me. I was just hysterical. And basically I walk in and she had been stabbed 7 times by a big hunting knife. And there's 3 times in the front, 3 times in the back, and twice in the neck. Or I guess once in the neck. But the one was from her ear all the way down to her clavicle. And it left her her jugular hanging on by fractions of a millimeter. And we know that if the jugular is severed, you're dead. There's no way to reconnect the jugular. And the fact that it was hanging on by fractions of a millimeter saved her life. And that, you know, obviously we didn't know that at the time. She had lost so much blood, everything, that we weren't know if she was going to recover. And she was wrapped up in a million blankets, hooked to every machine possible you can see. And I just had to bite down and just look her in the eyes and just hold it in. And obviously I can't do it now. So like, imagine how hard that was in person to do. And from then on, I never cried ever. Like the fact that I'm even crying now is bad. Like I never cried from there on out, probably for the next 15 years, you know, not 15, I'm 31 now, but 10 or so years, I never cried, didn't show any emotion. I knew in that moment, if she makes it, there needs to be a man in this family. My brother's a junkie. He's on heroin. I think he's overdosed. Before 18, he overdosed a dozen times. He's been declared dead twice. My brother's not the man of this family. My dad obviously isn't. There needs to be somebody who steps up for once and becomes the man of this family. And so at 15, I decided that person needed to be me. And that person doesn't show emotions. My brother needs somebody to, you know, to slap him into shape. And my mom needs somebody to lean on. So I decided at 15, I was going to be that person. And then from there on out, just never showed emotions. And eventually that, you know, led down a very dark path of bottling everything up, and everything just became a storm inside of me over years and years and years. And finally, once my mom got back on her feet and recovered, and my brother still kept going down dark holes, I just decided to take my own life, or try to. And it never got easier. I think a week after that with my mom, I went and saw my brother in the hospital, overdosed, and just his eyes rolled in the back of his head, not know if he's going to survive. It was just
so the week after your mom had the accident.
Yeah, which to be fair, I can see why he did it. You know, you're so stressed out.
He's suffering as well.
Yeah,
and that's his way of coping.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't blame him for it. That's his outlet, is heroin. So what can I do?
But what's going through your mind when you're just seeing?
I just wanted to hit him. I just wanted to knock him out. You know, his eyes are rolled in the back of his head. He has a bedpan of blood next to him, just throwing up in it. And I'm like, I just want to beat the shit out of you. Like, out of everything we're going through, you have to Like, it's just always about you, So that just pissed me off. And just, yeah, it didn't stop. I don't think he got clean till I was about 24. I don't think he got clean. So it's about another 9 years of that. And just showing up to the hospital continuously as a kid, just not knowing if I really was going to make it that night. And it's just another day, So now we're good. I love him to death, but yeah, it's just a wild ride of a couple of years.
At what point in your life did you begin to start loving yourself?
Honestly, I don't know. I think it finally hit me one morning when I was traveling. I'd never traveled, never been anywhere. And I was about 23 years old, never been anywhere. Was about to get married, about to propose. Girl broke up with me, and I decided that I was going to leave the country. Bought a one-way ticket to Bali. I didn't know Bali was a romantic place. It was the cheapest one-way ticket I could get 2 weeks later or so. Didn't know it was a honeymoon destination. It was a very bad choice. But I met some incredible people there that kind of changed my perspective on life and made me miss who I used to be before the accident with my mom, of that happy-go-lucky kid. Now, that trip kind of like not helped me find myself, because I didn't, but it showed me who I used to be, and I wanted to be that person again. And I just was going to spend the next couple of years trying to do it. So I'd go travel, I'd go work back at home, and then I'd, go travel again, the typical, I guess European lifestyle it is. For America, that's very rare. Nobody agreed with it. The family who took me in, Mike and Lucy, they didn't agree with it. They told me I was going to get my head chopped off in Bali, which is not, true. So it took me a long time, and I don't think traveling ever gave me that. I think it was one day I finally realized that life's just about being a good person. And if I can wake up every morning knowing that I don't owe anybody an apology for lying, for cheating, for stealing, I went through a bad phase as being a kid after everything, and being angry and lying to people and just being deceitful. And if I can wake up every morning knowing that I don't owe anybody anything as far as, that I wrongfully did, then I'm pretty happy.
Do you think that's almost like setting a clean slate every day, saying what happens in the past is the past, and I know that I can make today a better day?
Yeah, knowing that just do my best every single day, no matter what it is, I give my best. And when I lay my head down at night, I know that I lived today to the fullest, and I know I did every single thing I could, not for myself, but to help fill someone else's cup up. And I guess through that, I just kind of found love for myself, is not so much I didn't have to, or I didn't want to apologize to anybody, but I didn't have to. I stopped doing wrong by people. And I just started treating people with kindness and respect and love. And I think by doing that enough, it was like a fake it till you make it deal of like, I'm filling up everybody else's cup. Eventually my cup's going to get full, which obviously is, here and there. Sometimes it's not always the case, but it's what I had to do, to finally realize like, hey, I'm showing everybody else love. Like, why can't I show myself a little bit of that? And so obviously I'm still finding that balance, but yeah.
When you look back now, times when you were depressed and suicidal, did you understand that at that time?
No, not at all. I didn't know what I was going through. I actually thought I was going insane. After everything happened with my mom, I picked up as many jobs as I could, 3 or 4 jobs. By the time I was 21, I was working at a bar as well, doing security. So I was never sleeping. I was working a job, making pizzas, or working on a farm, or doing anything I could, and going to school, plus doing MMA. Like I kept myself so busy making money or trying to create a career through MMA once I found out that was the path to go, that I never slept. For years, I didn't sleep, and I would hear voices in my head. And I didn't realize what was going on. I literally thought I just was hearing voices in my head. And I realized that was just because I didn't sleep, and went and saw a therapist about it. And it wasn't me going insane. It was like metacognition. So you're thinking about thinking about thinking. So every thought I had, I would think why I'm thinking that. And I'm thinking why I'm thinking that. And the fact that my brain is never resting, it's always going. And then you start becoming delusional. And so once I started treating myself a little better and sleeping, voices got a little bit quieter and everything, and kind of could make sense of what was going on and realize, I didn't feel right. there was some dark times that I still needed to take care of. And I think by seeing a therapist, it kind of helped that out a bit, help pull out those demons or that darkness inside. Once I got the sleeping taken care of, that was masking a lot of things.
So what steps do you take now going forward, now that you've been able to self-analyze and self-diagnose what was happening in your past to ensure that you don't fall down the slippery slope again?
Oh, that's tough.
Because from my experience with depression is that if you do let it take over, it can become more consuming, and you have to put in practices in place that can stop you from ever going to that point where you do slip.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. I think you have to be able to see those signs when they're coming, when they're creeping up, or you might be falling into something. And I guess what my always thing is, I have a tool belt of ideas and things that get me out of those funks. And that's kind of why I've done MMA, why I've done running, biking, swimming, lifting, basketball, anything, is that those are all different tools. And while MMA helped me through those dark times for a little bit, eventually it stopped helping me. And then I went to running, or I went to lifting, or I went to traveling. Those are all things that I got help with, or they were helping me. And then eventually they didn't help anymore. So I went to something else. And I'm never going to stop trying to find something that helps me out of that funk. And if that one thing doesn't help anymore, or that one thing I try, well, that's okay, because I've tried several other things and they did. So I'm going to keep trying until I find something that does pull me out of this funk. And I guess that kind of keeps my mind and self active and forgetting about what is, kind of overtaking my mind and trying to override it into a dark space when I know it's not who I want to be and not what I am. So I just try to stay busy and try to find something, and not in the sense like avoiding it, you know what I mean? Because it does kind of sound like you're trying to avoid it at all costs, but knowing when it is a real problem and when this is just your mind trying to play tricks on you, and know that some days you just don't wake up in a good mood. And some days I don't. Some days I wake up horribly depressed and I just hate life. And I realize that this isn't me. I know this isn't me. I'm going to get out. I'm going to go to the gym. It might suck and I might not want to do it and I might not want to talk to people. But I think by being open about that, even moving to Leeds, I'm fairly new to Leeds. I've been there about a year, but maybe full on 6 months with all my travels. And people who follow me on Instagram and know me, and I'm very open with my mental health issues in the past, they reach out. They go, hey man, like you look a little bit off today. Like you doing all right? And that right there makes a world of difference. Someone will say, hey man, they'll reach out and be like, hey, have you never needed someone to talk to? I think that's what we need. We need strong community. So I think the answer to that question is having a community that will always stand by you and just call you on it. If you're not looking right, be like, hey man, what's up? Like you good today? And be like, honestly, not. I'm not. And they're like, all right, man. Well, if you ever want to talk about it, let me know. And that right there makes a world of difference to me alone. Even if we don't talk, just the fact, like I said, I was never seen as a kid. Just the fact you see me and you notice something is off is more than I could ever ask for, because it's never what I got growing up. And I think my main goal in life is to always be there, be that person for somebody, because I know what it's like to not have that person. And I think through all of this, that's my overarching message of it is I will always be that person for you, because I know what it was like to not have anybody. And I never want to see some other kid growing up in that same situation. So if I can prevent one person from that, I will. Even if it's me pouring too much out of my cup, it's worth it to me, because God forbid you try taking your own life if you just needed one person that day to say like, hey man, what's up?
Yeah. No, it's important to surround yourself with people who can be part of a support network, whether that's people, like you said, who will check in on you. And I'm very thankful myself that I have a few people that I can name that do that. And we'll just randomly sometimes just message, hey, how are you?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Or if I see them, just say, how are things? But also I've learned that I've learned to micromanage my own problems the instant that they might start to occur. And this could be a case of just sharing some, how's your day today? Well, this thing happened.
Yeah.
And, it might just be the early stages of something. And then your friend will be like, oh, this is okay. Things are good, or give you some advice that might help you tackle that problem. And it just becomes a small thing and then it passes over. But if I didn't have that, it could stir and lead down to dark things.
Definitely. Yeah. I think just being more transparent like that, like nothing, no issue is too small. Just nip it in the bud before it gets too big. I think being able to have that sort of strength, like you're saying, that, that sense of awareness right there is like the most powerful thing you can do.
I spoke to Sean Conway a couple of months ago after he did his record-breaking 105 Ironman, in 105 days. And one of the things he said that he micromanages every little thing. And I heard him say in another podcast that if he gets a grain of sand in his socks, he takes his shoe off and he instantly sorts it out. He's not going to let that develop because he knows in the world of endurance that you have something small, over time it can manifest into something big.
Yeah.
And I feel that is the same with my mental health or anyone's mental health, is that any small things, if you let them manifest, become big. But if you can share those things and get them off your chest and into the world and get friends to help discuss and solve problems with you, then they disappear.
Yeah. And I realize too is we might ostracize ourselves for those thoughts of like, oh, this little thing that's getting me, like I'm too weird for thinking it, or like, oh, I'm just overreacting or I'm overthinking things and people are going to think I'm crazy if I say it. It's like, you realize once you do say it, your friend could be like, yeah, man, same thing with me. Like, I always think that too. And they're like, really, man? And you don't feel alone. Like, you realize once you become more transparent with these issues that you might be dealing with, like, you're not alone. I think that's a huge thing to realize that, other people share some of these issues or these problems or these worries. And
you would never have guessed that because it's hidden within like their past. And they would be like, wow, I didn't realize that you had that similar experience. And they might have even had a worse experience on that same thing. Yeah.
I think it, if you're already friends, like, it just creates a tighter bond, like a better understanding of who we are. And we spend our lives with people. Like, why shouldn't we know a little bit more about them than what is just on the surface? I think it's a beautiful thing to just be able to be transparent with people, especially people you don't even know, like, hey, what's it going to hurt? No one's going to make fun of you. At the end of the day, like, it's a very small percentage of people who are actually going to point a finger and laugh at you when you say what you really feel. And, if they do, so be it. It's one person out of a million that would do it, and you're going to find a lot of people in that million that you just vibe with, and you're going to be a better person for it. You're going to be a happier person for it, and with a lot more friends.
How did your life change by coming over to the UK? How long have you been here now?
About 3 years. Came here prime COVID years.
Okay.
So that was a bit rough. Coming to London, big city. People aren't quite the most open and friendly, especially during that time. Everybody's just point A to point B. And I didn't come from a big city, so that was pretty, big culture shock. But moving to Leeds, I love it. Nothing wrong with London. Love London too. It's a beautiful city. So much things to do. I love plays and musicals, which we just didn't have in the States as well. I love being able to just walk from place to place. I think that is obviously great for your mental health as well as your physical health versus in the States where you drive so much. I just love that about it. But you get that everywhere else across the UK as well. So I don't know. It's just fun.
Am I right in thinking you started to kind of develop these kind of endurance kind of feats from the UK? You started with the National Three Peaks.
Right, yeah. Which is a weird one, yeah. Completely forget about that one.
Which is your Snowdon, Scafell Pike, and Ben Nevis.
Yep.
You did this on your own?
Yeah, so I was living in Spain at the time. Had just met my girlfriend when I was traveling with my buddy, and I'd moved back to Spain. She was living in Barcelona, so I moved back to Barcelona after we spent about 8 months talking. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. Moved over there, and I don't know what I did or why I was thinking it. I had a weekend available, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do 3 Peaks. I don't know what spurred it, because like you said, I just never did endurance things. And so for some reason, it just kind of like piqued my interest. And I know a lot of people, they have cars and crew and everything. And I'm like, well, I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends here. Like, I'm just going to go do it. So I rented a car, drove to Snowdon, did Snowdon in the freezing cold, went up the wrong one. I went up Crib Gotch, which I didn't know. I was like, I remember looking at reviews and people were like, it's so easy. My grandma can do it, Snowdon. And I'm like, okay, cool. This will be the easiest one. I'm going up Crib Gotch at like
it's different ways.
11 p.m. And I'm like, my grandma is not doing this. I was like, there's no way my grandma is doing this. And then it's pouring rain, of course. And it's about either start of September or start of August. I can't remember, somewhere around there in the fall. And obviously my phone wasn't waterproof back then. My phone breaks coming down. And I'm sitting in the car. I have a flight out of Edinburgh the next day. Because I plan, I'm doing this in 24 hours. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm doing it. And I was never a runner at that point either. I was just lifting. And my phone broke. I was like, well, what do? I have no way to navigate anymore. You know, I didn't print out MapQuest like we used to when we were kids. And so I find a youth hostel down there, and I go in. I'm like, hey, does anybody have a bag of rice? The old school, putting your phone in rice. Hostel doesn't have it. But this older couple, like 60, 70-year-old couple, is like, oh, yeah, we have a bag of rice. So, all right, can I use it? So I put my phone in the rice, and I go sit in my car, and I wait there.
You don't know where to go right
now. No idea. And there goes my time. Like, I'm going to lose. So I sit there, and I'm waiting forever. Finally, I'm like, all right, I'm taking a nap. I wake up about, 2 or 3 a.m. My phone's semi-doable. I'm like, all right, well, I already know the way up. I'm going to go do it. So I ran up Snowden again, up the proper path. Because when I was coming down Gribgotch, I could see where I should have gone. So I'm like, all right, now I'm going to do this the proper way. So I run up the proper way up Gribgotch with my phone in the rice. Because I know my phone's kind of on, it's coming back to life. So I run up, not Gribgotch, I run up, it was the piggy pen or something like that?
Pig track.
Yeah. Yeah, so I ended up running up Pig Track, which is a million times easier. I'm like, this my grandma could do in the daylight. So I get up it, come back down immediately. So I touch the peak, get down, plug my phone in.
She just peaked Snowden twice.
Within a couple hours. Like, I ran them. Like, I came back fast. And I was like, all right, cool. Get down to the car. My phone is kind of like on the fritz still. Like, it's not, I can't see it. It's kind of like blurry. Like, they have all lines in it. So I'm like, all right, but I can hear it and it's saying where to go. So I use it to navigate me to Scotfell. So I get to Scotfell. And it's like,
you made that sound so easy with the fact that your phone was
right. Well, it was telling me where to go.
Like, it was just down the road.
But everybody beforehand was so worried about me. I had a friend from Birmingham. Everybody's going to kill me for just saying it how I said it. But Birmingham or something.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy. He was one of the guys I met in Bali. And so stopped by with him before I did all this. And they were like thinking I'm crazy for doing it by myself. Like, the mom was his girlfriend, who's now his wife, her mom was going to take the day off just to like make sure I was safe and go drive me. And I'm like, to me, it's like, what? It's like 3 hours between the first two and then maybe like 6 between the next one or something like that. And I'm like, it's like a long day's work for us in the US. Like, that's not even the length of California. So I was like, I'm good. And I'm getting a stop to go exercise. I'm like, I'll be wide awake. Like, I'm used to driving 8 to 10 to 12 hours in California from Oregon to California growing up. Like, I was so used to it. I'm like, this is nothing. And so I was like, all right, this will be cake. I'll get out, I'll run Scotfell, I'll be wide awake, and then I'll continue on. And so having to drive, and this probably sounds very unsafe, but having to drive when I'm on like country roads and no one's around, I'm like throwing my clothes over the passenger seat so they can kind of dry out, and I'm getting my next clothes ready. And so I stop the car, boom, throw on my clothes. And as I'm running up Scotfell, like running up through it to the parking lot, I'm like, hey, what's the weather looking like? It's a clear day. And the guy's like, I could change that in an instant. I got to bring something. I'm like, I'm not bringing anything. I have time to make up. So I don't bring a single thing up Scotfell. I'm just hoping that'll work. And I just book it up. No hoodie, no anything. And I book it up, touch the top, take a picture, start running back down. There's this lady. They're like, oh my God, we just saw you come up. We're almost there. And I'm like, how do I break this to you? It's like, you are nowhere near the top. I'm going very fast right now. I don't want to break it to you, sweetheart, but you're nowhere near the top. It's one of those things of like, you're almost there. I was like, I can't say that to you. So I was running back down, hop in my car, and I get this guy running over to me. And he was like, hey, is your name Justin True? And I was like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, oh, you might want this. It's my credit card I was using for everything. Whoa. And I guess I dropped it when I was running out of I guess I just look like an American. So, or look like a Justin Drew. And he's like, save my day. Like, that would have ruined my whole trip. There's no way I would have been able to fill the gas or get food or anything. I was done for. So from there on out, head up to Ben Nevis, get to Ben Nevis and come down at a reasonably decent time. I thought Ben Nevis was going to be a lot harder than what it was. I'm disappointed that I didn't see it during the day. I wish I would do it because it was I could see it like through like I'm trying to think of a picturesque word for it. And like the moonlit sky of like kind of the ground beneath us. And it was obviously such a beautiful night out. The top was terrifying because I'm looking at my phone and I'm trying to find where the peak is because I can't see the peak. And they have these giant, almost, I guess you call them like cliffs maybe, but these giant rock stacks. And I guess they're for people to not get lost up there, but there's so much fog, I couldn't see anywhere. And so I'm looking at my phone trying to figure out where the highest point is, to where the peak is. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, I'm not there, but I'm like, I don't see anywhere higher, but I'm going to keep going until I find it. And obviously back then I cared about technicalities, which I don't think there is any like official book. So I'm like looking for it, and I come to this like horseshoe of like this cliff. It's like falling off, and I'm like, oh man, I should probably look up and not just follow my phone. Like it was just a drop off of a cliff at the top. But in order to get from like point to point, you had to find the cliffs because they were like 8 feet tall or something. So you could see them at least. Those are the only things you could see is like one cliff to the next. But I'd get in the middle of one and I'd look back and I couldn't see it. Like the fog would just keep rolling in. And so that was kind of like freaky up there. And I did have my bag with me, and I found a little emergency shelter at the top that you could get into if things got a little bit dodgy. But I just foolishly kept going on because I don't really know what it means to stop. I'm like, I'll just find my way. One day it's going to come back and bite me in the butt. But until then, I'm going to keep going. And so I just kept finding the points and got to the highest part of the peak, turned back around. And like, that was the most terrifying part of like, I should probably just stop and just camp for the night, go into this little emergency shelter and just hide. But ended up finding my way down somehow. And eventually you get below the fog and you see like the land beneath it and all the creeks and stuff. And it's, like 11 p.m. at night or something. And it's gorgeous. And I'm like, dang it, I really should just stay up here. But yeah, eventually ended up getting down to the car. So
what an adventure.
Yeah, it was a good one. Ended up doing 4 peaks, I guess.
In 24 hours, was it?
Yep. Yeah. The 3 were definitely in 24 hours. The 4th was not. That had a little nap in between. So I had to restart.
You put your own little kind of...
Yeah. Yeah.
Your own little slant on it.
Yeah. A very me-esque journey of nothing prepared and just winging it.
This is an interesting point about you, actually, because from some of your other challenges that you've done, I've read that you haven't always necessarily had the biggest preparation time going into them. You just kind of have a screw it, just do it attitude to some of them. Let's, I guess, start with your world's strongest marathon.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just a 26 miles pulling a 1.5 ton car.
Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah. Typical Sunday or Saturday, whatever it was.
To many people, running a marathon is a tremendous challenge. To many other people, pulling a car down a street is enough of a challenge. Yeah. What made you think that you could do it over 26.2 miles?
Because someone asked, why don't I do it over 13.1? Why don't I start with a half? And so I thought, all right, watch me. Just, I didn't like that. Nobody, you don't know me. You don't know my capabilities. You're putting limitations on people that you have no idea about, and, fair play to you. I don't run, I did a lot of stuff that summer. Like that was a summer where I did the triathlon with the hammer, the Thorathlon. I did a big tandem bike ride with a buddy on a little beach cruiser, like tandem bike that was miserable. And then the third month is when I did that. So it was like a month kind of deal. At the start of every month for 3 months, I did something, not on purpose, just got bored and I was in Oregon, didn't have anything else to do. And so did that month, and it was about August 1st to August 2nd. And just, I don't know, just seemed right. It was for a good cause, obviously. For basically, they were all just things like a big flashing billboard. Like they all meant nothing to me. It was more so what I'm raising money for, and I need to get your attention. And even back then, 2018, like, we just need to grab people's attention. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I just need to create a big flashing billboard like a Hollywood sign to get your attention. And you're going to wonder why I'm doing it. And it worked, So at that point, is pulling a car up and down my street just because no airport or racetrack would let me do it. I got ran off a couple private airports by gun. We have a lot of gun-toting Americans in Oregon and a lot of private airports that you shouldn't be on their property. So I got ran off a couple properties doing that and thought, I have a mile-long stretch in front of my house in Oregon. I'm going to do it up and down the road.
I can't even fathom the amount of strength that is involved physically and mentally to do something like that.
Yeah, the chafing was the worst part. The chafing was tough. But I don't know. It was just another thing, I guess. I don't know. I guess it's something that I realized that I need to be more proud of and more stoked about. But
how was your body after that? The next day? Were you a broken man?
I was a broken man right after it. I was laying, everybody left, and I'm laying on the living room floor. And I'm like, I'm dying on the floor now. I'm just chilling. And all of a sudden it hits me that I I have really big, obviously from fighting back in the day, I had a really big like stomach issue of just never going to the bathroom for 3 weeks. I wouldn't go to the bathroom because I never ate anything. That goes with the anorexia ordeal and eating disorders. And so, I have a harness on that's pushing against my gut for 17 hours. I never went to the bathroom, or at least number 2, right? And I'm laying on the floor and finally everything hits me. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to go to the bathroom. I go to turn over onto my stomach and go to stand up. My legs didn't work. I could not use my legs to stand up. And I thought, after all this, I just did something relatively really cool and looked awesome. And now here I am. I'm going to shit my pants in my living room. And that was the first thing that crossed my mind. I was like, this is what it all came down to. This is how it's going to end. And so luckily I started army crawling to the bathroom and then worked my way up to crawling on my hands and knees. And then eventually it was like the caveman picture. And finally I got up to like a mid like hobble and made it to the bathroom and didn't disappoint myself or didn't embarrass myself in my own, presence. So that was kind of nice. So I was broken until then, and then eventually hobbled over to my buddy's house. But the next day just kind of went on doing normal things. 3 weeks after that, left to Madagascar to walk across it. So just kind of staying busy. Was
this before or after you decided to cross Africa by foot?
I had that planned. I had Africa planned. Africa or Madagascar? Sorry.
Africa. Which one came first, Africa or Madagascar?
Sorry, so that was 2019 was all this. 2018 was Africa. Spring 2018 was Africa. Because then that was a year had passed before I decided to go back to Madagascar, or to get back to Africa, Madagascar.
And how much prep did you put into the crossing of Africa?
Maybe a couple weeks.
Because weeks of that. Were you walking this, running this? What was your aim?
Walking.
You wanted to run. You wanted to walk across the continent of Africa. Mm-hmm. That's going to take you years, right?
Well, it was a weird thing. So, kind of walk, run. Like, I guess, when we look at ultras nowadays and there's 200 milers or 300 milers and the average pace per day is 1.8 miles per hour. Like, are you walking it or are you running it? Just because it's called a race, now you're running 300 miles. But did you actually run? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a play on words kind of deal, which not shaming anybody for what they're doing, So when I was like, I'm going to walk across Africa, my plan was to run 26 miles a day. So in that race or that like breakup, I don't know what my timeline was going to be. Maybe it was like a year or two. I can't remember. But that was my goal, was minimum 26 miles a day if I ran it or walked it, whatever. So yeah, I was never into running. Like it was this is before the car marathon, before the Thorathlon. Like I was just bored. Like I just thought this would be cool and I wanted to meet people and experience the world.
It's just like a travel journey for you.
Yeah.
But you didn't last very long.
No, it lasted maybe 3 weeks. You
started in Egypt.
Yeah.
Didn't get much further past Cairo.
No, I started in Alexandria, got to Cairo, stopped for ages because I just loved it and met some amazing people. And then I continued on towards Luxor, which is going to be the next stop, but didn't even make it to Luxor. Made it to, I think, Beni Suif was the place. And then I can't remember Azui or something like that was like the final place where things just went bad. But ended up getting, I guess you can call it abducted, kidnapped at that point.
Got coerced into a car.
Yeah, which I really did not want to be put into the car. I told them specifically, I only told them I was going to Luxor though, because obviously if I say South Africa, it's
these people,
crazy.
were they the army? Were they military? What were
they? They were like militia. Like they obviously all had the same like uniform, ragged uniform on, but obviously not police. Because eventually the police came by and saved me 3 days later. But,
Wow. So you had 3 days with a splinter group of people who were not officiated in any way, but...
Yeah, just hanging with the boys.
And what were those 3 days like?
It was like, the best way to describe it is Stockholm Syndrome. Like, I wasn't sure how I was being treated. Like, am I being wronged, or am I being treated right? Like, do they mean well, but there's language barrier? Because my plan was to walk during the night, because it was 115 during the day Fahrenheit. So I was about probably low 40s, maybe. Yeah, nearly 40 Celsius. Probably, so it was, I'm going to go at night because it's still hot. It's still 90. So, 30s, mid 30s for you Celsius. And they caught me waking up during a nap. I had got to this gas station and was showering because every gas station had beds and a shower because it's where people lived. And most gas stations treated me well. Like they would wake me up when I wanted to. Not that like I forced them to. They're like, oh, what time you wake up? And I was like, I don't know, 7 p.m. or something. And they would come wake me up. But it was funny. Like I always said they must have had an app for like find an American speaker around me, because I'd get to a place and they'd be like, oh, hold on. And they'd go run off and find some kid who spoke broken English. I'm like, where do you guys find these people? There's just one kid in the town that everybody knows speaks English, and they go get him. And every place I went to that happened. So that's how I talked to anybody. And so this happened, and this guy wanted my passport. They wanted everything. And then eventually I kept saying, no. And he kept trying to take pictures of me, and I felt really uncomfortable. And eventually this blue truck pulled up of like these military guys. And they kept telling me they were going to take me to the next town. I'm like, oh, no, man, I'm cool. I'm going to walk. Like, you don't understand it. Like, this ruins my mission. Like, I'm just going to Luxor. Because if you say Cape Town, then you sound crazy, right? Like, not walking to Luxor is crazy enough. And so eventually they basically, like you said, just coerced me. Like, there's no other option. I had to get into the truck with them. So I hopped in the back of the truck, and I have several pictures of me in the truck with them, because all these these locals are like taking pictures of me in the truck with them. And they're like taking selfies. I'm like, all right, well, take my phone, take a selfie of like me with the boys in the back of the truck. And so they're all like taking pictures with me too. It was the weirdest thing of like, well, obviously I'm taking pictures, like we're cool, nothing's wrong. And then, we drove outside the city limits, and then they would kick me out of the truck, and they'd make me walk in front of the truck. They wouldn't let me take off my bag and put my bag in the truck. That? I don't know. And that's why I was like, hey, like I don't walk during the day. And there's a weird, like, I know they didn't want me out in the cities because there's a lot of people who might be curious and might try to hurt me. And that might look bad on them. So if they let me out on the outskirts where there's nobody, then I'm safer, I guess. Or do you look at it as, so are they helping me because they want me to be safe and they don't let me walk through the localities is what you'd call them, like the villages, because it's unsafe. So they transport me through them? Or do you not want people to see what you're doing to me by basically just putting me in front of the truck at 115 degrees? I have my bag. You're not giving me water, not giving me food. Which way do you look at it? You know, and I'm just kind of just roll the punches at this point because there's nothing I can do. And, not giving me water or not taking my bag was pretty upsetting. Obviously, I don't want to take an easy route, but if you are going to just, drag me across Egypt like this, then at least carry my bag for me. And, they put me up in a hotel the first night, and they blocked off a restaurant and fed me. I got terribly sick. That was the only time I ever got sick there was from that food. But it was like being a celebrity-ish. It just felt like, obviously, they just wanted me to be safe. But like they blocked off the restaurant in the middle of nowhere. I'm eating. They're bringing me all this free food. And they put me up in a hotel free again. And they're like, oh, when do you want to leave? And I'm like, I don't know, man. And I'm like, I can't get away from them. So I'm like, I'm going to leave at 10. And they're like, okay, cool. So I woke up at like 7 a.m. I'm like, I'm going to get out of here early. I'm going to get out of here and just book it. I'm going to take off. I wake up at 7 a.m. I look out the blinds, and I have a picture of looking out the blinds, and there's just like a squadron of cars waiting for me out front. Like, there's nowhere I could go without these people. And then basically walk out front, put my bag in the truck, hop in the truck, and they drive me to the edge of town, and we do it all over again. And then every time we got to like a checkpoint, I'd get handed off to the next group, and that group would leave and go back. Like they only had certain jurisdiction, it felt like. And so each group I got to, it got more and more aggressive, like more unfriendly of like, oh, we're not going to, let you get in the truck during this point, or we're not going to put you up for the night. One time I just slept on the side of a road next to the checkpoint. And so it's like become more and more unfriendly. And then finally we get to this one, met some kid's son who was in dentist school. Like it's really, again, so I'm getting kind of treated like family at some places. And so get to this last one, and this guy takes my passport, and they drop me off, and he's like, do you want to go to the ATM? And I'm like, no, man, I'm good. I didn't realize I was 3 days in. I'm dehydrated, I'm hungry, and I'm sick. I'm having diarrhea because I got sick from the food a couple nights ago. Like, I don't really realize that he's asking for a bribe till like weeks later. I like play it through my head, and I'm like, oh, that was a bribe. Would I have done it? Probably not still. Like, I probably would have just tried fighting my way out of it. But all these guys have guns, but nobody is laying their hands on me, but they're okay with hitting me with their guns, which is really odd. And in my head, I'm like, I'm really used to being dehydrated and hungry from fighting. I'm used to it. So I'm like, I know I can survive in this. Like, I'm still good. But if you were to let me go right now and walk, there's no way I'm making it to the next village to buy food and live. There's no way I'm making it. So then I'm like, now I'm getting scared of like, I kind of have to rely on you now. And so we're at this locale, and somebody had gave me the embassy's phone number before I left Cairo. And he had this expat, I forget where he was from, somewhere in the US. And he'd been living in Egypt for a long time, teaching up in Alexandria. But I met him in Cairo. And he gave me the number. He's like, hey man, if anything goes wrong, like, you should have this number. So I call this number, and it's this lady on the phone, the US embassy. And she's kind of like taking the piss the whole time, but probably being serious. She's like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, does that matter right now? I'm here. I'm picked up. And she's like, have you ever done this before? And obviously me being stubborn, I don't want to be wrong. So I'm like, yeah, I've done this before. She's like, where? I was like, Central America. I'm like, I'm just lying again because I don't want to be proven wrong. Like, I look like an idiot already. So I'm like, nah, I'm professional at this. I do this all the time. And I'm like, listen, are you going to help me, or are you just going to keep like making fun of me here? Like, she's like, no, I'm not. There's just nothing I can do. Like, they haven't done anything to you. And I'm like, so I have to get shot first, or like what? And I'm like, listen, give me to somebody else. So I end up talking to this one guy on the phone. He's a bit more helpful, a bit more understanding on what's going on. Like, doesn't feel like he's taking the piss out of it. And basically he's just like, listen, if we step in and do anything right now, it becomes an international incident because they haven't done anything to you. Like, they might have hit you, but it's really not that far for us to hop in yet. Like, there's no actual harm done, that's going to be big. So I just had to write it out. And so me and him kept texting. Like, he was cool. Texted me once I got back home in America as well. Like, very friendly. Like, hey man, like, glad to hear you're okay. So it was all cool. But
it's kind of like you were imprisoned, but without any chains.
No, it was really weird.
You just kept under the watchful eye, and because of that, you couldn't escape.
Yeah,
but there was no physical kind of barrier.
No, I'd get hit by a gun if I walk near somebody. But I'm like, could I grab? I've never used a gun really. I've shot a gun maybe twice in the States. I'm not a gun-toting American. Like, I just don't care to.
It wouldn't end well.
No, and I'm like, even if I did, I could probably take out a couple of you, but there's about 50 of you. Like, I'm not doing
the
anything.
Next kind of
whoever comes
jurisdiction.
Next.
Yeah,
and so I'm like, I'm just kind of stuck. And that honestly is the thought going through my mind of like, how do I get out of this? Do I try to take you guys out?
Looking back now, thinking about this was just the problem you had in the first country that you crossed.
Yeah.
If you had gotten through Egypt somewhere along the way, a white American like yourself was going to run in some kind of trouble. Yeah.
And I actually, once I, fast forwarding through it all, I actually got deported from the government, met the president of Egypt, got deported. They thought I was a spy.
Are you blacklisted now from ever going
I don't
back
know.
to Egypt?
I called the embassy when I got back.
Probably wouldn't try.
And they said, you might be allowed in. Your visa will get accepted, but when you arrive, you might get kicked out. But I don't really want to arrive and then get put in jail because I've kind of done that with them now, being in a holding cell out there, and I don't want to do it again. Some of the cops who picked me up while they were deporting me, they were crying. They really hated what they were doing. They're like, listen, we don't want to do this. They were cool. Friends with them on Facebook. They still FaceTime me here and there, and I don't understand a word they're saying. But they all meant well. It was just a big misunderstanding. But I have learned from like Levison Wood or Mario Rigby, who walked across Africa and rode a bit of it, like rode Lake Malawi. They both said Egypt was they both went, south to north because the Nile is south to north for Levison. But Egypt was the hardest country to get through. So I knew once I got through Egypt, I'd be golden. But even when I got to the airport to get deported, I know you can't get into Sudan through the airport. You have to get through at the border. So obviously, as I said, I didn't plan very far ahead. I at least knew the visas, but I didn't order any visas ahead of time, so I could fly in. So I bought a ticket to Sudan, and they wouldn't let me fly there from Cairo. They're like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to Sudan. They're like, you can't go. I'm like, I'm going. I just don't want to be here. So I was dead set on not giving up. Even if I had to start from Sudan, I was not giving up. But they wouldn't let me fly into Sudan. Basically, they just sent me right back to America. So I still really want to do it, but Egypt might be out of the question, which is a bummer. It's a cool place.
Yeah, well, there's other northern countries. Yeah. I guess you've had this experience of doing these challenges with very little planning and preparation and training, and then you get this opportunity to do something huge. I guess at the time, was it America's longest triathlon?
Yeah, longest continuous.
Which, when I said spans the country of America, it spans more than it. You started not in America, you started in...
I was going to start off the coast of... I was going to start in Bahamas, but COVID protocol back then wouldn't allow it. So I'd literally be lost at sea because that's when my COVID test would run out, somewhere in the middle of that Gulf Stream. So I had to start off the coast of Florida in Key Largo and swim to Miami.
So you basically swam into America. A 50-mile swim.
In between 32 and 40.
I'm getting my research mixed up then. Okay.
Well, it was supposed to be. The numbers hopped around with the swim. It was, and it's tough to measure an ocean swim. That's always, usually they measure in hours. So it'd be around 32 hours maybe. So that's what you would measure it in. 32 to 40 miles probably. If you average like 1.72 miles per hour.
And how did that break up?
Not well. It didn't go as planned. I was hoping I could get further out into the Gulf Stream, which is the world's fastest stream. So I was hoping to average almost 3 miles per hour. But when you go closer to shore, which we're still about, pretty far out, at least where we couldn't see land. But if you're not out at the Gulf Stream yet, you hit a countercurrent. So I was battling the countercurrent about 90% of the time, swimming against the current. So my speed just dropped drastically. And so it ended up only being 3.5 days. I'd go about 4 hours on, hop out, get some food, and break for about an hour or two, and then get back in and go. So that was just that on repeat.
Okay, so you arrive in Miami in Florida. You've now got one of the longest bike rides that you'll ever do.
Yeah.
Which has to go across America. But before you go across America, you're going to go north.
Get out of Florida.
Out of Florida, because that sticks out as a huge peninsula.
Oh, yeah.
Do you hug the southern states of America?
Yep, right across the bottom.
You're going all the way to San Diego.
Yep.
Which is the furthest west and south of mainland America.
Yep.
How long is that distance on the
3,000 miles.
And then you run from San Diego to San Francisco.
Yep, the Golden Gate Bridge, which ended up being 601. And I picked the Golden Gate Bridge because that's kind of where I'm from, is where all those kind of dark times happened. Where I heard my mom got stabbed, where all my brother and I, all our battles happened. It was just, we lived about 45 minutes, 30 minutes north of the Golden Gate Bridge. And obviously the Golden Gate Bridge is kind of a very famous spot for people taking their own lives. So I wanted to kind of rewrite that past for me, that history of me, of every time I went back to the Bay Area, I had this dark shadow over my head of just a very bad time in my life. So I wanted this to be a new start for me. I wanted to rewrite that chapter. And, when I go back there and I cross that bridge after flying in San Francisco, to be like, I did something cool here. Like, I was able to maybe help some people. And that one extra mile, there's a whole story with this guy who ended up coming with me, is about 150 miles south of the bridge. And I was hurting. And he drove past me on the road and basically asked me what I was doing. We talked for a bit. He drove all the way down to Long Beach, California, got out, texted me. He's like, hey man, I've been thinking about you the whole entire way. I told my buddy about you. We're going to come back and help you finish. Cause I was hurting. I had staph. I had a broken foot. I had a pulled muscle in my right, or pulled tendon in my right foot.
You had a broken foot.
I broke my left foot 100 miles in.
Of a 600-mile run.
And I was dragging my way up the coast of California. Never met this guy before. His name's Tim. And he basically comes up with his buddy, arrives at 2 or 3 a.m. and ends up doing, I think, about 32 to almost 40 miles a day for 3 or 4 days to get to, I think it was 3 days. So 3 ultras in a row, not a runner at all, either of them. Tony ends up actually like almost collapsing on the ground because his knee was buckling. Like he couldn't take it. And he's like, no, if you're in pain, I can do this. I can be in pain too. And we both just kept pushing it and pushing it. And my brother actually came out and met us in Big Sur. And it was so cool because even my title fights in MMA, when I had championship fights, come to find out, when my brother was in prison, he told me, when I went to go see him, he's like, every fight you ever had, I was shooting up heroin in the bathroom. And I'm like, the one time in my life where I thought you were there for me. And this is a moment where, like we said, nothing was ever about me. I was like, this title fight's for me, a championship fight. I'm the main event. Like I am the guy tonight. And it's about you doing heroin in the bathroom. And so I told him I was in trouble. I was hurting. I was hardly moving up the coast. I think I made 3 miles in maybe 15 hours, just crawling up the coast. Tim's on his way back up to help me. My brother flies from Bend, Oregon to San Francisco, hops a bus down to wherever he could in Big Sur, and ends up hitchhiking to find me, laying on the side of the road, just literally like convulsing in pain. I'm in so much pain. I'm good with pain, and I'm convulsing in pain. I've been to the emergency room twice to treat my staph infection, and just to hug my brother, and for him to come all the way out and finally be there for me was hands down one of the most special moments of my life. And for Tim to show up, and for all four of us to now go up the coast of California, and Tim was hurting, and we're all running across the bridge, and I look back and Tim's not there, and we're almost to the finish. Like the bridge is a mile long, and we're almost there. And I'm like, where's Tim? I'm like, oh, he's back at the start of the bridge. Like I call him like, hey man, where are you at? And he's like, oh man, I'm just getting onto the bridge now. And I'm like, all right, I'll be right there. And I'm like, I'm not leaving you behind. The only reason I got to the finish was because you did some incredible thing. I think he missed his daughter's graduation. He's got a little girl. He missed her graduation from school, from that grade, just to be with us, like just to come up and help me, a complete stranger, like just dropped his family off. I was like, all right, babe, I'm leaving. I'm going to go help this guy who I thought was a tweaker crawling up the highway. I'm going to go help him finish this because what he's doing means something. And so I ran back across the Golden Gate Bridge by myself. Everybody else, actually, a couple of them thought I jumped. They thought this is the way I'm going to go out because they couldn't find me. They're like, we just saw him. He was just done. Where'd he go? And my tracker showed me on the other side of the bridge as if the current took me out. And my best friend, David, he ended up actually running down the other side of the bridge toward like on oncoming traffic side because he thought, in my head, I think he thought I jumped. He's a firefighter. He likes to save people. I think he thought I jumped because we were running on this side, and it's a hard way. You have to jump across 6 lanes of traffic to get to the other side of the bridge. Why would you get to that side? I don't know. We haven't asked him yet. I would like to ask him that in the documentary we put out is kind of like did you think I jumped? Like, did you think, because a couple people told me, they're like, yeah, man, we thought you jumped. Like, we didn't see you for 30 minutes. You were at the end. Where'd you go? And it was like, I just didn't feel right having Tim finish alone. If I only got here because of him, I wanted him to finish with everybody. I wanted to finish with him. I wasn't going to celebrate without him because there's no way I would have made it without him. And I think that's the whole point of all of it, was community, was being there for other people. He was there for me. I'm going to be there for him for the rest of my life. So that 601.2 means a ton to me. People are like, why is it 600? It's 1.2 because I wasn't going to leave someone behind. And so it was just a beautiful moment to me to be able to share that with everybody.
That's such a beautiful kind of way to finish that journey. And I think it's a great place to kind of leave this conversation here. I think clearly you have an infinite number of stories from all the adventures. I mean, we've only really scratched the surface on some of them. But I'm glad we really digged into the Dinnie stones. Yeah. I wonder how your attitude going forward goes towards preparing for these things. And I think it's probably not going to change too much in terms of, I think you're still going to have this screw it, just do it attitude. Yeah. I think you did announce to the world that you were going to go do Hadrian's Wall, the coast to coast, 185 miles continuously.
No, 85.
85
it's
miles.
85, right?
85 miles? Yeah. Continuously.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I think you got distracted by going and having Thanksgiving with family. But I from what I'm guessing, from talking to you today, that's just something you're just going to go and do. Like, it's not like you're prepping, you're training or whatever. It's just, you got some fitness, they've got the mentality to go and do that. And it's there because you live up north.
Yeah.
So why not go and do it? And so I feel like it won't be long before I kind of see that that's a journey complete as well.
I mean, it's a beautiful reason to get out in nature and see the world. I think that's, if we kind of take away from these physical feats as being these extremely impossible physical feats and just realize that, you're getting out there and you're seeing the world. Like, it's a beautiful place. Like, take advantage of it while you can. And 85 miles, it's far, but like, I get to spend it with some people who want to come out and join, share some stories, grow a bond together, build a community a little tighter. Like, you get sitting inside all day doing nothing, or like, I can just go out and see this world while I have a chance. Cause like, I figured out one time, like it all could end tomorrow. So why not just explore it? Thank you, Justin. You definitely inspired me. I think, in
I've always feel like I've been a screw it, just do it kind of guy. And when I'm learning from other people that sometimes there's beauty in planning and preparing things, but also sometimes you just need to just go out and seize the moment. And
yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not about the whole accolades. It's really cool to get, a finisher's medal or to plan like the triathlon. That one was the only one actually planned, but it's cool to have things like that. But it's also cool just for it to be for yourself. I think in the day and age of a lot of social media and stuff we want to do, and it's also, there's no harm in it, is doing stuff for other people, for good causes and fundraisers and all this. But what I was really happy about is you asked me to come on and talk about the Dinnie stones, because that's for one thing in my life that I know I did for me. Everything else, the triathlon, the Thorathlon, the strongest marathon, the peaks, everything has always been for someone else. I think why the Dinnie stones meant so much to me was that it was just for me. And I think we need to be able to find beauty in that sometimes it's okay to be selfish and do something that just feels right to you, and just, again, loving yourself. I didn't need to find an excuse to go do this and be like, I'm going to do this for this cause. I'm just doing this because it sets a fire inside of me and I want to feel that. And I never want to put that flame out. And so I just encourage other people to go do that. Whether you do it for a good cause or whether you do it for yourself, there's no harm in it. Yeah. So I thank you for, asking me to share the story of the Dinnies, because it is extremely, extremely special to me out of all the stories. So I appreciate that.
It's been great. Certainly getting it from an American's lens as well, kind of coming over here and just realizing how special story it is behind every one of those stones. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you want to find out more information about any of the guests, please check out the show notes, where you will also find links to things mentioned in the conversations. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please take a look through the past recordings. There's so many more incredible stories for you to find, and I can't wait for you to enjoy them. Thank you.